Can you actually buy a condo in Calgary for under $250,000 right now? Yes, 366 people over the last 90 days did exactly just that, and that is up from 304 over the same time last year. And these are numbers I just pulled from my sold database this morning. So that entire entry tier is back, and that's why I thought it important to make this video, because the cheapest condos on that list are usually the most expensive to own. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which numbers to check before you fall in love with that listing. If you were trying to buy your first place in Calgary over the last couple years, you probably always felt that the door was moving on you. You would save some money, but then the prices would increase, and now the amounts that you needed to get into that place would completely change. But over the last 1 year, you would have noticed that there were certain properties around the 230, 210, sometimes even under 200 in certain parts of the city that made you take another look. And if at that time your first instinct was suspicion, you wouldn't be too wrong, because looking at everything else around you, why would that property be that much cheaper? Is there some special assessments coming up? Or are you just catching a falling knife? I'm Ash, your Calgary Realtor, and on this channel we pull sold listings every single week, so you're not just stuck looking at headlines, but understand exactly where the market's headed and where specific segments are making moves every single week. Here's an honest answer to the suspicion that you had earlier about those cheap priced condos. Yes, those prices are real, and no, those buildings are not falling apart. So the reason is not probably what you're suspecting. In fact, it is something quite different. Stay with me, because in about 4 minutes, I'm going to show you two completely different set of condos that sold in the exact same time period with the exact same number of bedrooms. However, one is $30,000 cheaper, and hold it long enough, that condo ends up being far more expensive than the other group. Starting with the headline number, because that's probably the stat you've already seen. Calgary Condos have settled at $299,000, just below the $300,000 mark, bringing it down 9% year over year. The months of supply is at 4.91, and anything above 4 is a buyer's market. So that puts condominiums in the buyer's market, and that's something everyone is aware of right now. Now here's a part that headline skips, and that most people forget to look at, is when the benchmark price falls 9% year over year, it starts refilling a segment that most people thought was gone forever. For example, condominiums under 250,000 has actually seen an increase of sales year over year by about 11%. And condominiums or properties under 200,000 has actually seen an increase of sales above 55% same time last year. So now that's an entry tier being built out of falling prices. And I want to be very clear, that is not signal of a market recovery. Those are two very different things and often get mixed up. So now let's go somewhere where the Calgary Real Estate Board report just can't take you. I've pulled every sold listing under 250,000 for an apartment in Calgary over the last 90 days from my own sold database. That's 366 of them compared to 304 last year. So the volume is up by 20%. While prices have fallen 9%. The median property in this price range sold for $215,250 and sold in about 35 days. And they closed at about 96% of the listed price. So there is some real negotiating room within this price bracket. Every one of those numbers basically says one thing. That first time buyer price range bracket is totally back, and it is yours for negotiating it. Now, if you want me to run these numbers for your budget and the neighborhood that you're looking in, the link's in the description, just reach out and we will know exactly how much negotiating power you have so you can take full advantage of this market. Now getting right back to the video and the numbers that I have pulled specifically for this price point. My database also holds the condo fees on all these sold properties. So what I've done is split it by the property age. Out of the 366 properties that sold, taking a look at all properties that were aged before 1990, you can see that they sold for an average median about 196,000, and their condo fees are at about 574. On the other hand, the newer buildings constructed after 2010 sold for an average about 226,000 with a condo fee of about 371. Now read that again, because that's usually backwards from what I see a lot of buyers expect. Yes, the cheaper building costs you $203 more every single month. The ones that you save $30,000 on average on the sticker price. The reason this is extremely important to understand, because a lot of people in this price segment purely chase price without realizing the long-term consequence. One of the questions I often get, and I've broken it down for you, is most people ask, am I getting more for that money in those buildings? And is that the reason the condo fees are higher? And therefore, I've broken it down and cut those out between the two different property types so you understand where that price increase is coming. The heat is included in about 95% of the old buildings and in about 90% of the new ones. The water is also in about high 80s for either way. The bedroom count is also pretty much identical, about 1.5 on both sides. So you're not really buying more by spending more. Instead, what you're really paying for is an older building's maintenance and contributions to its reserve fund, which is what you would expect to maintain a 35-year-old building. So let's do the math on it because it's simple, yet no one really does it. $203 more a month is about $2,436 more a year. Over 5 years, that's $12,180. So your $30,000 discount is more like $18,000. And of no fault of yours, you lost the rest of that discount. And if you still continue holding it, then about the 12-year mark is when you will essentially break even on that $30,000 discount. And now you're stuck paying the higher payment, which most probably is way higher than what it is right now. And if you notice, we haven't accounted for anything to do with mortgage rates because condo fees are completely independent of mortgage rates. But one thing they are tied to is the inflation rate. So in Canada, knowing how high inflation has been racking over the last couple of years, what do you think is going to happen over years of ownership? So here's the part I want you to take away from this video. The price of the property did fall, but the fee didn't. So even though the entry market is back, you're still dealing with the same condo fee issue that we had before. And that part, you cannot refinance or renegotiate at a future point ever. Pricing is fixed the day you buy the property. However, the condo fee that you pay on gets voted every single year and only ever moves in one direction. Now I want to handle the most obvious objection I get, because it's a fair one and I tested it. A lot of those cheapest units are really all in city center, so the pre-1990 condos. About 71% of them are in city center compared to just 10% of the newer condominium. And within under this 250 group, the city center actually carries the highest average condo fee at about $571. So the fair challenge against that data then would be that this is more a location issue versus being disguised as age of the building. So I ran it again with downtown core completely taken out. Pre-1990 outside the downtown core, a price of about $196,000 and a condo fee of $577. As for condominiums 2010 and after outside the downtown core, prices are about $227,000 with a condo fee of about $363. So that gap didn't actually shrink. Instead, it got wider at $214 a month. So this is clearly not just a downtown story. And I'm not trying to talk you away from buying older buildings. Avoid older buildings is the wrong takeaway from this video too. In fact, some of the 1978 buildings are beautifully run, have a well-funded reserve, and provide some of the best value in the city. While on the other hand, some 2015 condos have condo fees rising at about 8% a year with artificially low set condo fees when they were initially made so that the builder could sell those units fast. So at the end of the day, building age is a hint, but it is definitely not the only metric. Overall, you can't rank condos just based on price. Price is just one of the two numbers and you've always only been shown one of them. So here's the one thing you should do, and this is specifically if you have a list of condominiums saved and you're trying to pick which one to go see first. You open that list and then for each one you write the price and you write the condo fee. Then you take the condo fee times 12 and times 5 and add it to that price. That is your 5-year number. And that's it. That's the whole exercise. Your list at that point will reorder itself. The one that was on top based on price will generally not end up being there anymore. And the one that you ranked lower just because its price was $20,000 higher will generally have gotten its way to the top of the list possibly. And now that's the one you might want to go see first. Because remember, you are in a market where you hold all the cards in your hand and you have a lot of negotiation room. So do not discount properties purely based on price. Here's one thing you absolutely want to avoid. Ideally, before you write the offer, you're able to get your hands on the reserve fund study for that building. Even if not, make sure you have all your conditions in there to protect you against any potential faults that we could find in the reserve fund study. And you do not want to just skim over it, you want to detail read it. And we also get the Istanbul certificate for you for that person's property so that you know there are no outstanding issues with that property with the condo board or anyone else. The reason the reserve fund study is so important is because it tells you if today's condo fee is absolutely honest with where it's supposed to be with upcoming expenses, because then you will find out if there are any special assessments that are coming up in that building that maybe the current owner is already aware of. Sometimes certain condo managements can be really hard to work with to try and get these documents. That usually in itself is already a sign, but then you also want additional terms in your contract that allow for ways to circumvent and allow you additional time to review those documents, so at no point in the process you feel pressured. If you're looking at buildings under $250,000 in Calgary, and you want someone that's on your side running the math of all of those buildings that you're considering, the link to book the call is in the description, and I would love to have that conversation with you. We will go through all the fees, the reserve funds, and which of those buildings I'd put my own money into. And I pull the sold data apart every single month, including the fees. So make sure you subscribe so that you know the numbers behind the numbers before you're even standing in the property. And I pull apart the sold data every single month, which is something you will absolutely not find in the headlines, including the condo fees like we've seen here. So if you want to know the numbers behind the numbers before you're even standing and going seeing properties, make sure to subscribe. As always, thanks for staying till the end. Hopefully you found this video useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, take care.